So welcome, everybody. I'm Kerry Anderson, for those of you that haven't met me before, and I have the privilege of managing the Startup Centre Victoria project on behalf of the City of Greater Bendigo across the region. I'll tell you a bit more about that in the moment. But I really want to start by acknowledging and extending my appreciation to the traditional owners of the land that we are standing on today. And I see that a number of you have already done that in the chat box. The Central Victoria region is meeting on Yorta, Dja Dja Wurrung and Taungurung country. Today, we pay our respects to leaders and elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hopes of all the peoples. Startup Central Victoria is funded by the Victorian State Government, and it is focused, as you can guess by the name, on encouraging startups, but also scale-ups across the region. And we're very keen to remind everyone this is a regional project. So we have a special welcome to you from the 6 local government areas provided.
Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to Startup Central Victoria.
This is an exciting and collaborative journey, creating and growing businesses in the region.
Together we can learn to work and support each other.
We look forward to hearing more about your business ideas.
And thank you for your commitment to our region.
This is a wonderful, exciting time for businesses. We know you've been through a lot, and we're really looking forward to working together with you as a region.
And finally, can I say that entrepreneurial spirit and commitment leads to transformational change. What a great thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Now, in conjunction with the Regional Health Innovation Hub, Startup Centre Victoria is delighted this evening to welcome 3 women entrepreneurs to talk about data and health. Lexi Randall-L'Estrange is a Castlemaine-based founder and director in the health, technology and social innovation sectors. She has worked in commercial and social purpose sectors across SMEs, that's very tech jargon, Lexi, small, medium enterprises, not non-profits, social enterprise and startups. So very broad experience there. Now, Megan, I'm not sure whether Megan's been able to join us as yet, but I will introduce her because we're hoping she can still get online. We know there's thunderstorms across Victoria at the moment, so it's a bit hit and miss. Megan Gomez is founder of Rural Health Connect, a social enterprise that connects people in rural Australia with psychologists online using video conferencing technology. So fingers crossed that we get Megan in the room. Vicky Lane is co-founder of Square V, a Bendigo-based firm that provides custom software, websites and apps across Australia and beyond with a focus on the agricultural sector. So we've made a bit of a jump from health to agriculture here, and we're making it an interesting evening for you all. Now, in the lead up, there were 4 keywords emphasised as part of this event. You could probably guess them: women, entrepreneurs, data, and health. Recently, it was International Women's Entrepreneur Day, which is what prompted us to invite 3 women to be our guest panelists at our very first startup meetup. And I will tell you a bit more. We're going to have a lot more of these. So let's start with Lexi. What do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of being a woman in business, Lexi?
Thank you, Kerry, and thanks everyone for dialing in tonight. I'm sure we have a lot to learn from everyone participating as well, and I hope we get to hear some responses from other members of the audience, and as we have such a small group. Being a woman in business, well, I started off as a woman in engineering, which was, probably even more of a minority field, and I'm very aware that, with my age, I'm standing on the shoulders of the giants of feminism who've really paved the way for the opportunity for equality and championing of women and diverse people in all the sectors where we work. And it is a time when there is lots of support and encouragement for most organisations to promote women within their workplaces, but also I think there is a preference for some people to invest in women-led businesses, and people are just generally, I think, women is a very narrow sector of the diversity landscape, but I think more generally, people understand now how important it is to have diversity in leadership and diversity in problem solving. And I think that's particularly important when working in a technical space, because that's really your job, is problem solving. So I've certainly not experienced any major disadvantages from it. And I think for the most part, it's a time in our history when there's some structural changes which make it easier or even a benefit.
So, Lexi, you are in a business partnership, so you're not.
Yes, that's right.
So you've got that comparison to make. And Vicky, I think like Lexi, you are also in a business partnership. What would you add to what Lexi's just said?
I definitely agree with what Lexi said, that diversity in different experiences and getting all sorts of people in the room is important. So if we're going to cut out 50% of the population to start with, that's probably not a very good starting point. So it's definitely great to have other women around and to see women being more encouraged and feeling more able to become involved in entrepreneurship and starting businesses and getting stuff out there. So yeah, I came up through engineering as well, which was also a very male dominated field, and there were definitely times when I experienced discrimination as part of my university degree, and maybe a little bit of bad blood with people doing things like, oh, you only got hired because you're a woman and that sort of stuff. So I think that is changing though. I think there's a lot more opportunities for young women now, and I'm excited to see them come through the ranks and hopefully get towards parity in things like software development and in careers like that. So,
and I think this is why it's important to shine a light on women that are in a particular field, and so it's not a surprise to people. We had a huge truck show run by the Rotary Club in Castlemaine over the weekend, and we had a number of women drivers come through the gate in the big rigs. And I saw a comment on social media where a very well-meaning volunteer said, and she could back as well as the fellas. And I thought, and why should that be a surprise to you? Maybe we're just getting more opportunities to demonstrate our capabilities in some of the fields that have been male dominated. So I can appreciate definitely engineering has been a very male dominated one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I haven't been asked to make the tea at a meeting for a while, so maybe things are improving.
They're not happening as fast. I was being, a bit measured before. It's still frustrating. It's not happening as fast as it should be. It actually blows my mind, to be honest. But small step, I guess.
One step at a time. We're paving the way for the young women coming behind us, and that's really important. It is one step at a time. Change can be slow, but well done, ladies. You're part of that change. That's great. So the other word that we mentioned in advertising this chat this evening was entrepreneur. Now, I very deliberately used the word entrepreneur in the title of my book, and I'm very interested to explore about how you feel about being described as an entrepreneur. Vicky, I'm guessing that you might be a bit of an introvert. How does the word entrepreneur sit with you?
I actually have a pretty funny story about this. So I was at a meeting sort of a couple of years after we started the business, and I said to somebody, I was just in conversation with somebody, and I said, oh, I never thought that, I would be an entrepreneur and start a business. And they said to me, oh, you're not an entrepreneur. Like, am I not? And they're like, no, you don't have a product, you don't have a tech-focused product startup, therefore you're not an entrepreneur. So apparently, starting a business from scratch and running that doesn't count to some people. I thought that was a very interesting experience.
I can relate to that because every conference I go to and speak at, I've spent 10 years studying entrepreneurship, and I hear so many different interpretations of what entrepreneurship is. So I can, but how do you feel? I've introduced you as a panel of entrepreneurs. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think I do now. Like, we're not a tech startup in the way of we don't have a product that we're pushing. My business is more of a consultancy. But at the same time, being an entrepreneur to me sort of says that you're taking a risk and backing yourself and getting out there with an idea of something that you can sell to people. And we're selling our services rather than a product, but we're still, I've still got to have this business work to make our mortgage payment and the mortgage payments of my staff. So we are definitely taking the risk and getting out there and creating something new. So I definitely think that's an appropriate title, even if some other people don't.
So tell us just quickly a little bit about what your company does, because you're giving us a bit of a taster. Let's tell us a bit more.
So my company, Square V, we build custom software and apps for various businesses in the agriculture space, sort of user experience and software development both. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, Lexi, how do you feel about the word entrepreneur? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Look, I think the challenge, and that's what Vicky alluded to, is that there is a dominant, archetype of entrepreneur, which is the white male tech entrepreneur, who is, motivated to pursue profits at all costs. So I would hope no one has cause to, compare me to the likes of Jeff Bezos. I think a lot of people who are shaping the world right now, who might be incredible entrepreneurs, are extremely damaging to our society and our health and the environment. So it's a very loaded word, I think, just because of the dominance of that archetype. But for me, some other definitions that I've heard of entrepreneur is someone who sees opportunities that other people can't see. They see opportunities and connections, and they, I think there is always an element of risk taking. I think that probably is a good definition to always have in there. But I think what you're motivated by, it varies a lot. And we have now that, more well-defined concept of a social entrepreneur, which is someone who is solving a social environmental problem, or they might be solving a business problem, but they're doing it in a way that is explicitly designed to create social and environmental value. So I would say I feel very comfortable with the term social entrepreneur, and a little bit comfortable with the term entrepreneur. But I think entrepreneurial, I think as a spirit or as a characteristic is something that I prefer that, because I prefer the realization that I think everyone can be entrepreneurial, and we have, intrapreneurs who are entrepreneurs within an organization, and people can be entrepreneurial in the way that they approach their own work inside another organization or starting up a side hustle. So I think the spirit of entrepreneurship is much broader, I think, than that that definition of just an entrepreneur. But having said that, we are a tech company with a tech product. So yeah.
Well, I guess the important thing is to define the difference between innovator and entrepreneur. Anyone can invent something, but an entrepreneur can take it to market. But there's also lifepreneurs, there's seniorpreneurs. No one really owns this word. I think it's quite exciting. It grated a bit on me, I'd have to say, at least 5 years ago, but it was widely used in the United States. And I agonized over using it coming back here to Australia and talking about it. And then I thought, but it gets people's attention. And you're right, all of those things you mentioned, it is risk-taking, but I always say calculated risk-taking, because I find that entrepreneurs are great researchers. And, Vicky mentioned the mortgage. Entrepreneurs have skin in the game. It's very different to working for a big company. It's not your risk that you're taking. This, as an entrepreneur, you're taking your own risk. There is an element of courage involved, that ability to have vision and see beyond what is here now, what could be in the future. There's just so many attributes to an entrepreneur, and it's not one easy definition. And I think we are getting a little bit familiar with it. We've had a bit of a tall poppy syndrome here in Australia, and I'm determined to shine the light on our business community and call them entrepreneurs if that's what gets people's attention, because we certainly need to model what is possible in Australia and in a global sense. So thank you, ladies, for sharing your stories with us this evening. So going back to the beginning and talking about courage and skin in the game, Vicky, what prompted you to establish your own business? And it was with a partner right from the beginning, but you both would have had some. Did you have some angst? Was it an easy pathway or a difficult pathway?
We got very lucky when we started our company that we already had connections, I guess. So the sort of impetus for us starting Square V, I started it with my husband, is that we were getting a lot of requests from people to build software for them already. People who we knew in the agriculture sector who were coming to us and saying, I need this stuff built, can you guys do it? So we were pretty lucky that through contacts and networks, people knew about our skills and said, can you come and build this for us? And we sort of had it was almost like a ready-made sort of starting point for the business. We did end up at a sort of I guess inflection point a couple of years down the track, where the initial projects that we started off with had all finished, and we had to figure out how do we go out and get more work, and how do we grow the company, and how do we make those changes. So there has been some hard work. It wasn't all luck, but I think in terms of starting, it wasn't necessarily a thing that I was interested in growing up. I was never interested in having a business or anything like that. It just sort of, I guess, grew organically out of the experiences that we had, and we thought maybe there's a business there. And it's a lot harder work than I thought it would be. Our sort of original idea was, we'll be able to go and travel more. We'll be able to, won't have to get permission from the boss to go traveling anymore. But instead of, what I learned quickly was, instead of having one boss, we now have 15 bosses with all of our clients. So it's 15 bosses you have to get permission from to take time off instead of one. So it's a little bit harder in that sense. So it doesn't have the benefits that we necessarily thought, but there are definitely good benefits. So.
And like many people that find themselves in business, they see an opportunity, or they're problem solvers. And obviously you had the talent to fill that gap, and that's the pathway you've taken. So well done. Lexi, what was your journey? Now, I know your social enterprise business, a whole mix, but what took you in? Was that what you always wanted to do, or it just happened?
I started off doing environmental engineering, so water engineering, so quite a departure from where I am now, with the similarity that it's, a technical field, problem solving, client facing work. And I just got very involved with the social sector while I was involved with engineering. So I got very deeply involved with Engineers Without Borders Australia. I was involved with them for about 10 years, finishing up on the board with them a few years ago. And then through that process, I decided when I left engineering that I wanted to work for either an organisation that was a non-profit or work in that space. And I ended up going to work for Ethical Jobs, and they were a startup social enterprise at the time. They did a jobs ad board, which that's promoting for a subsection of ethical sectors. And I took that job because I had already started up another small organisation and I wanted to invest some time in that. And I also wanted the opportunity to learn from someone who was running a small tech business. So I never thought I would end up in business or in technology, but I think that desire to create something new, so I think the creative aspect, but also the desire to work for myself led me down this path of being a business owner and a product owner. So yeah, definitely did not expect to find myself here. I've got no one in my family is in any way related to in business, so I was flying pretty blind, and I think that was actually the hardest thing.
And there has been surveys done, and it said that if you have a business member in your family or immediate circle of friends, you're nearly 40% more likely to go into business yourself. So it takes a lot more courage when you don't actually have that support immediately around you. So that's a nice segue into the next question. Maybe there were challenges along the way, Lexi. What has been the most difficult challenge that you've had to overcome during your startup journey, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge, I also, my husband is also my business partner, and we've had one sort of failed product together. We've got two products which are their own companies, so they're two separate companies that are going at the moment, and I've also been involved with other, the early stages of other startups along the way. I'm a bit of a easily distractible or easily excited rather, and I think that's probably has been the biggest challenge, is actually trying to decide which opportunity to focus on. So like we took a social enterprise to an incubator and had to let that one go. The business model just didn't stack up, so that was good. It was pretty easy thing to step away from in that sense, but one of the other businesses was starting to pick up at that time, so we had to make some pretty hard decisions, which is, whenever you're doing a startup, you get so much support and encouragement, and you've got mentors and clients, or even just pilot customers, and a lot of people along the journey invest in your idea. And I think always that's the hardest thing, is to if you're letting something go, is to I suppose thank and let go everyone who's come on that journey with you, so that you can focus your attention on where the opportunity is.
Yes, having that focus is just so important. And we find that when you are in business, particularly in that startup phase, you have to learn to say no to a lot of other things so that you can actually do justice. It is quite draining with a startup. Vicky, have you had similar challenges, or what's been your biggest challenge?
I'd say our biggest challenge has definitely been COVID. We, being a consultancy, we have clients all over Australia, and most of our business comes basically through networking, people hearing that we've done a great job for somebody else, and then they are interested in talking to us about their project. And the minute that COVID hit, we weren't able to fly and visit people anymore, and we weren't able to meet people through serendipity at conferences or events and things like that. Everything sort of dried up. I think that the appetite for risk in the business community really fell during COVID, in terms of people trying to get out there with their willingness to invest money or look at new projects or new ideas really sort of dried up, at least in our sector. So that's been a really big challenge for us, is keeping the business running for nearly 2 years, I guess now, with not a whole lot of work coming in, and just kind of doing what we can to stay afloat. And good planning definitely helps with that, like having cash reserves and being ready to weather a downturn, although we could never have expected one of this magnitude. But also, I think, I'm not sure where I was going with that.
Well, do you think you're stronger as a result? What did you actually do? Do you feel like you have come up with some strategies that you're stronger as a result of the past 2 years?
I think that we have a lot more faith in our ability to weather the challenges, I guess. The bad thing happened and the business hasn't collapsed, and we haven't had to fire any staff, and everyone's still employed. So in that sense, it's been good to see that the business is more resilient than maybe my worst fears at the start of COVID of, we're going to lose everything, we're going to lose our house, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it has been good, and it's definitely helped that in the last few weeks I think everything's sort of snapped back and immediately come to life, and I've been I'm on a plane tomorrow morning to Adelaide, so things are looking back to normal.
What a change, what a change. Yeah. Now, I think we might have Megan in the room. I'd like to welcome Megan, and we might just get you to introduce yourself, Megan, and tell us a little bit about the Rural Health Connect.
Thanks, Kerry. Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry I'm a little bit late, but it's lovely to meet everyone. I have got a startup social enterprise called Rural Health Connect that links people in rural areas to psychologists over video calls and over phone calls. We particularly work with people who are rural and isolated, but also largely disadvantaged. So the challenge that we're facing now is that there's high demand for psychologists everywhere across the board. And so where it might have been easier to get psychologists to work with us because we offer other things like referrals, easy flow of referrals, like taking on a lot of the administration and that sort of thing. We're now finding that our biggest challenge is sort of recruiting psychologists in a competitive workspace, I guess. But that's what we do. And yeah, there's always a lot of really lovely, well-intentioned psychologists out there. So we've just got to find them all and get them on.
So I think I read that you have a journalist background. Did you have any business, experience going into this project, Megan?
No, definitely not. No, there's so many different learning processes throughout something like this. And yeah, there's areas where I felt like equipped to do what was needed, like grant application writing and, promotional stuff and that sort of thing. But other areas, like anything financial, I'm just completely out of my depth. So no, it's definitely not.
So how did you go about overcoming, there's obviously lots of challenges and skills gaps. How did you go about managing that?
Yeah, I think it's just about finding the right people who can help, and which takes time sometimes. But, when you attend a lot of things, like I attended the amazing health accelerator at Bendigo Hospital, which was fabulous. You meet people who can help you in different areas, and over time you collect knowledge, you collect contacts who can assist, and it's incremental. Like definitely, now what I know now compared to what I knew at the beginning, like there's no comparison. But again, I'm sure that in a year or two more, like I will look back at some of the things I'm doing now and just what was I thinking? So yeah, I think it's incremental.
It's called learning on the job, Megan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it is. It is. And you have to make some mistakes, don't you? I mean, it's part of the process. So yeah. Yeah.
And I think that fear of failure does hold a lot of people back, when in actual fact, it is learning by doing sometimes, particularly if you're innovating. If it hasn't been done before, something new, or it's something you haven't personally done and don't have the connections to do, it is very much learning by doing. And the more you can plug into networks to assist you in this process, the better. So obviously you saw that opportunity and went for it. So well done. Now we've got 2 more words to explore. We've done women, we've done entrepreneurs, so we have health and data. And Megan's already done a beautiful introduction. Both Lexi and Megan participated in the Regional Health Accelerator program. So clearly there's an affinity with the health sector, with the type of work that you do. But I'd suggest that all 3 of our panelists use technology in some way, and with technology comes data. Lexi, what role does data play in your business? And you might like to tell us a little bit more about a particular business where data is relevant.
Sure, thanks, Kerry. Yes, I'm co-founder and managing director of Social Impact Software, and we have a patient-reported measures platform with a mission to accelerate the transition to value-based healthcare, and that's a system of healthcare where you're trying to get the most outcome for the patients for a certain dollar value. So it's a framework of thinking about health that is oriented around maximising value to healthcare recipients. And what we work with in both of our businesses is data, is health data, in a way that adds value either to research or or hopefully standard care environments. So, data is, it becomes information, through the process of doing research, and I think it meets people's expectations now. I think, particularly in the health setting, is that given we have technology, that where there are opportunities to identify issues and trends, that we are doing that as a health system. So I think that's probably what's quite interesting about where Australia is at, because we're still in that process of taking a lot of that information and putting it onto in that online environment where it can become data and can be analysed, and we can look for trends, and we can discover issues, or at an individual level or at a cohort level. That process that we're going through now as sort of a health system in Australia, I think that is more or less what people imagine is already happening. So I think that's perhaps not a very direct answer to your question, but it's I think that's probably just one of the more interesting things about working in this environment, is that what consumers expect is already happening. I think organisations and businesses are still in the process of trying to understand how we can best make that happen, because we're dealing with so many different legacy systems, and there's that clash between digital health data, and then there's paper-based information, and how do we actually bring that together in a way that means that we can provide good, coherent care for people.
Fantastic. Megan, is data important to Rural Health Connect?
Yes, definitely. We're not using it to its full potential yet, and I doubt we won't do it, but we will find someone who will really like using the data and analysing it and whatever, because it is really interesting just to look at. The software is really good at collecting it. So we collect gender information, age information, what ages people are seeking help, which is not, it's not necessarily you assume. It's like a very broad range from very young to old. Where people are from, all that other things too, like people, when they sign up, they choose whether they need to be bulk billed or whether they can pay a $20 gap. And that's really interesting sort of like social experiment. And, you know, we've got data on that sort of thing. So we're not really doing anything with it. It's just, but it's like accumulating. So yeah, one day some research person might like enjoy unpacking it. I think the government's fairly interested in it too, because they do some funding for us. So I think they like to be able to show evidence about like the impact that they're having. But then also, I guess unofficially for us too, like the data, and I think this is what you might mean, Kerry, but also like it's useful for us to know where the areas of need are. And so then we can sort of really target that. And I can tell you now it's like children and adolescents for us. Child and adolescent psychologists are in such demand and short supply. You know, and even down to which regions and that sort of thing, which is just interesting, like which can be useful in then applying for funding and, you know, saying you're targeting areas of need and that sort of thing. So I think it's valuable in many ways.
Yes, in a marketing sense, data is very valuable because it changes the way you communicate and how you target your particular audiences to get the best outcomes. So, and there was not one way to answer this question, Megan. You know, data is a very broad subject, and I'm just interested to hear how you all respond. So that brings us to Vicky. Now, Vicky, you wouldn't have called yourself health related in any way, although I did argue the point that, you know, maybe you help with healthy soils or healthy farms. Square B, how do you use data in your business and with your clients?
As part of our business, we generally help farmers manage their data a lot. So we work with varying different kinds of people and, you know, companies that want to do something with data. Like being a software company, it's about generating and storing and moving around and connecting different pieces of data together. And it's really interesting because agriculture as a sector, I think, is quite a bit behind things like the health sector in terms of how data can work together. So we often find that the data that we work with is very siloed. It's locked away by individual companies who say, I own that and I'm not giving it to you, even though you're the farmer and it was created on your farm by your machinery. You know, that's our data and we're going to amalgamate it together and we're going to sell it to people for our own nefarious, or maybe not nefarious, but potentially nefarious purposes. So I guess that's my sort of, one of my interests in data specifically is that I want people to make sure that they think about that, you know, when you're talking about data, it can be used against you. And we find this in farming a lot, that once you get data from lots of different people, lots of different farms, and you aggregate it together, even if it's de-identified, somebody with a lot more power in the system, like maybe a financial company or an insurance company or something like that, they can really use that in a way that's not always beneficial for the farmer, which is, you know, an interesting, it's kind of, you know, the David and Goliath situation where the data gets created on the farm by the farmer and it's shipped off to all these different places. But then once it's aggregated with the data from other farmers, it can be used to do things like maybe deny insurance claims or not approve loans or things like that keep the farmers going. So I think that with data, there's always this cautionary tale of making sure that we protect the people that create the data and ensure that the data ownership is with the people that create it and the entities that put the effort into generating it and storing it. So I think it's an interesting problem and it's only going to get worse over time. Like Internet of Things is becoming quite big in farming. It's also becoming quite big, I know, in health and all, you know, across all facets of our lives. So I definitely encourage people to think about the data that gets created about them as part of their everyday life and how it's being used and who you're giving it to and how it could potentially be used against you. So I guess that's my dark and evil cautionary tale.
It's a great cautionary tale because with data, there needs to be a narrative. because there's always a story behind that and it requires interpretation. And I remember watching a big storm arise on social media with a rural town that I follow over in middle USA. And they have a university at this rural town. They are so proud of the fact that they've established a university. But the population statistics told the story that they had high unemployment, and it skewed their results and put them, and it wasn't interpreted in conjunction with the fact that a lot of students on very low incomes, if no incomes, are living in that town and attending that university. And they had to push back. They realized they were being disadvantaged because of those statistics. So a great point that you bring up. And the bottom line is we all need to be prepared to fight to make sure the proper narrative approaches accompanies the statistics, the data that's produced from businesses and in general life as it is. So great point to bring up, Vicky. Well done. Okay, so I've asked a few questions and we've had a nice little chat. I'm hoping that you've got to know our three panelists a little bit more. Are there any questions that someone in the audience would like to ask? Lauren, you alert me if there's anything that we need to be aware of in the chat box, or someone can just put up their hand and go for it. I can guarantee at least one person in the audience is going to ask a question.
I've always got questions, Kerry.
Oh, Linda, of course you have. Go for it.
I'm interested to know if you find that being regionally based is an advantage or not, and what are the pros and cons of being regionally based? I think you are. I think that's what you've all said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's start with Lexi on that one.
I think so. Our employees are software developers, and we're very small. There's the two of us managers, and we've got two staff. They're both software developers based in Central Victoria, and I think things, software and online businesses have always had this benefit, which everyone else just realised over the last couple of years, that you can do all your work from your computer. So it's never been. I mean, so we did originally. We were in Melbourne. We moved to regional Victoria about 6 years ago. And it is because of the industry that we're in, and because it's a technology company, that we had the confidence to do that in a way that wouldn't be a disadvantage. And there are a lot of people, and more so recently, that have moved to the region. I think there is benefit in getting together face to face. So we get together on a Thursday, but otherwise we work from our own offices in our towns. And yeah, I think it's a great setup, and I'm committed to continue to hire as much as I can from Central Victoria specifically.
Vicky, you're based in the region. Have you always been there?
Yep, we've always been in Bendigo. It's been great for us. We get a lot more, I guess, like street cred, like credibility from working in agriculture and living in a regional area. So that's a plus, rather than trying to build agriculture software from High Street in Melbourne. Bit of a disconnect. The other thing that's great that I find is there's lots of really smart and really driven people in Bendigo looking for jobs in things like software. And the great thing is you don't have to be in Melbourne. You don't have to pay Melbourne house prices or commute for hours to have a job in tech. And I think that the more businesses like ours that we can attract to the regions, the better off it's going to be for everybody, because I sure as hell don't want to live in Melbourne with all that traffic. So.
And your customers, you've said, Vicky, like it, but Lexi, do your customers find it helpful or a barrier?
I would say just at the moment, so about 50% of our clients are Melbourne based, and the other 50% would be in other cities around Australia. So the ones who are in Melbourne probably miss seeing our faces as much as they used to. But, you know, for business reasons, I think, you know, we needed to move to a model where people were more comfortable having meetings and receiving support in that sort of online or virtual format. But yes, the people who were, you know, half our clients, it's absolutely no different. People didn't even know when we'd moved. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But yeah, look, I think the face-to-face element is important for any, you know, client and, you know, relationship driven business. We're also, you know, all referral based business at this stage in our business. So I think you do need to be available, and you do need to, you know, you need to know your clients as well. Some of them need to get together face to face, and you just need to work that into your model, I think.
Megan, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, well, I agree with that the support in rural and regional areas is significant. I don't know if it'd be different in cities. So I started in Rockhampton and then was in Melbourne for a while and am now recently in the Mornington Peninsula. So not that rural, but I think that these days the nature of, you know, the way everyone does business means that you can be anywhere. It's taken away any disadvantage, and there are just so many advantages. And I have found communities more supportive of, especially in the early stages of an initiative where you really need people to believe in you when you don't have any other clients or runs on the board. Definitely in rural and regional areas, there's people that want to help you up, whereas I think you just get lost in the crowd anywhere in a bigger city.
A great point. Now we have a question in the chat box from Scott. He couldn't make up his mind, but he's settled on, and I've just lost the thread. I'm going back. Can you read it, Lauren? Oh, actually, I found it.
Oh, good.
The latest tech. He wants to know about the latest tech that you're considering. So maybe this is a Vicky question to start with, and Lexi can add to it.
Latest tech. I guess a lot of what's happening in our sector at the moment is Internet of Things based. So it's, you know, different disparate devices on farms collecting little individual pieces of data and sending it back to one giant repository, and then using that data to create dashboards and display information back to people. The other big thing that's happening is you know, there's the ongoing machine learning, artificial intelligence kind of thing, and how can we use that to essentially, you know, take some of the load and do some of the stuff that computers are better at, and free up more time for the humans to do the things that humans are better at. So that's sort of the things that I'm seeing at the moment as the big things. If that helps.
Great. Lexi.
Yeah, probably not too dissimilar. I think certainly in terms of getting the most value from the data, I think that you get the machine learning and artificial intelligence, once you have a certain volume and velocity of data that you're dealing with, would certainly be something that we would be looking to employ to discover. You know, again, we're working mostly in the fields of sort of research, but also care settings. So how might we support our clients in that sort of research and knowledge discovery with their data? The tricky thing for us is that while our software is used to collect and manage good quality data, we don't take responsibility for the analysis and reporting, because that's quite controlled in the research setting, which is, you know, a large portion of our clients. So that sort of touches a bit on your other question before. I think there are really interesting dynamics and issues around trust, particularly when third party or, you know, private providers are involved with handling, you know, different types of data. And, you know, increasingly you have to meet expectations around the ease of and the confidence with the processes of withdrawing your data, which again it's different. There's sort of exemptions in the research space, and there's a limit to how much you can withdraw your data in some jurisdictions if it's been used in research. But I think, you know, it's just a really interesting time to be in health data, because you've got some people who are extremely conscious and aware of their rights and their opportunities and the technologies that are available to have agency over their own data, and that they see that's the future that they want to move toward. And then you're dealing with, people, clients even, that you have to call up and help them with their password reset, and and then they're dealing with health consumers who don't, who have even lower digital literacy. So it's very hard, I think, to meet everyone's demands and expectations. Obviously there are some that you're required to legally, but I think in terms of what those opportunities are, like, blockchain technology is actually, quite good in terms of identity management and processes around maintaining privacy. But it's just the consumer demand isn't there for it yet, because it's actually just that I think the technical literacy jump is too high, and it creates more concern and distrust for a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's a very challenging time in that sense.
Great, thanks, Lexi. Now, we did have one final question from Catherine, wondering about the growth that you'd all like to see in your businesses. So perhaps we'll go around the room to finish up. What is your aspiration? What are you hoping to achieve in the next 1 to 2 years within your individual businesses? So Lexi, you're up. You may as well keep going.
So with the newer products that we're working on, we're going to pilot that in the aged care setting next year, and explore and validate whether or not that's a good customer base for us to expand into. So I'd hope to at least have some clarity around that within about 12 months, about if we want to keep moving in that direction, or otherwise, we'll be looking for another segment to try. So to maintain probably the current staffing level, I think that we've got for at least the next 12 months, but validate
always
that
looking
sector.
to new markets and new opportunities. Megan, what's your aspiration with your organisation?
I guess we're sort of ready to scale. Like it's been a long time getting everything right, processes wise, software wise, like building up the contacts, building up credibility within the industry, all that stuff. And I guess now we sort of we despite having many, way to go in many areas, I feel like we're sort of getting there to the point where we can confidently take on more of everything and just do it at a wider scale. So that's the plan for the coming months, and who knows.
Sounds like a good plan. And Vicky, you're just getting back on your feet. You told me earlier you're busy.
Yeah.
What aspirations do you have?
In the next couple of years, I guess I'd like to, just keep growing, because we were growing fairly steadily before COVID, and then COVID's really, hit us back a little bit, but I'm hoping that we can start pushing forwards and keep growing with more clients and more projects and building more fantastic software. So, yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Look, thank you, Lexi, Megan, Vicky. I enjoyed the chat. I hope everyone else did too. It's just lovely to hear, just in conversation, your insights about your journey and sharing that knowledge. It's just been invaluable. And this is what we're planning to do more of with the meetups. So as I say, please stay tuned. And I will be emailing out tomorrow a feedback form, and in that you can actually suggest what topics, what speakers you'd like to suggest. We're going to have a wide range of talks over the next 6 months, so please give us your thoughts. The accelerator program, Startup Central Victoria Accelerator program, our second intake opened up for expressions of interest today. So it's a very auspicious occasion, the 1st of December, and they close on the 24th of January. So check out our website, startupcb.com.au, if you'd like to get more information on that, or just email me. Finally, thank you, Lauren, La Trobe University, for supporting us with the tech. As always, it's just so wonderful to have your support. We're the best team, aren't we? Yeah.
We definitely are, Kerry. Love it.
And thank you everyone for showing your interest. The girls are right. We encourage each other, and that's just so important in a startup and a growing business environment, that we are customers, that we are ambassadors, that we are supportive in the good times as well as the bad. And I think this was a really good demonstration of that tonight. So thank you everyone. Till next time, stay well.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good
Kerry.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.